Okay, so I thought it would be fun to kick off October by looking at some gravestones in spooky movies. And I'm going to start with the Halloween classic Hocus Pocus. It's a movie I'm sure everyone's seen. It's a movie I'm certainly familiar with because I grew up in Salem, and I actually remember them filming this when I was a kid. The beginning of the movie shows Max Dennison riding his bike throughout Salem and up into a cemetery. And this particular scene is in fact a real cemetery, although it's not in Salem. The cemetery they filmed in is actually located in Marblehead, which is a town right next door to Salem, and it's called the Old Burial Hill. It's one of my favorite burial grounds in all of New England. It has some incredible gravestones as well as breathtaking views of the ocean. The characters go back to the cemetery twice later on in the movie, although these scenes were filmed on a set. As a result, we get tons of fake graves. As a gravestone enthusiast, it's really fun to pause and zoom in on these. One I spotted in the corner is almost an exact copy of the famous Timothy Lindell stone, which is in the old burying point in Salem. And this tells me that the set designers were using local gravestones as references, which is kind of cool. But the grave I really want to focus on is that of William Butcherson, whose corpse is brought back to life by the Sanderson sisters. Now, whoever designed this grave was clearly basing it on the Susanna Jane stone, which was carved by stonecutter Henry Christian Geyer in 1770. It's probably one of the most famous gravestones in all of New England, and it's actually located in that cemetery in Marblehead that I mentioned earlier. I mean, if we just look at these side by side, there are such similarities. For one, the shape is nearly identical. The tympanums are both really, really high. If we look at the skulls, they both have a crown of laurel, although Butcherson's skull is more similar to the skulls of stonecutter Nathaniel Lamson, who always used hooked eyebrows and a crisp, wavy upper lip. Butcherson's grave also has a prominently carved crossbones, which was probably borrowed from the stonecutter Henry Eames or John Homer, who both featured very boldly cut crossbones underneath or behind their skulls. The epitaph starts with "Here lies ye body of," which is very common for that time period. The E is above the Y, which you see all the time, and the superscript in Mr. is very common. But notice how they capitalize the "here, lies," and "body." Usually the use of small and upper caps was just reserved for the name itself. And one thing you see missing is the age of death. That was pretty typical to see on gravestones, although they did add "lost soul," which is a really cool touch. At the bottom, we find a few more death icons. Notice the bats flying in the corners. These, again, are definitely taken from the Susanna Jane stone. And the coffin with skeleton is a great visual, although you wouldn't typically see, or at least I haven't seen, a skeleton in a coffin. It's common enough to find skeletons carved in tympanums or in borders, but I really can't recall one that I've seen in a coffin itself. Usually anytime you see coffins on gravestones, they're filled with a little folk-looking human form inside. Other features are the scrolling finials, which are very similar to the Joseph Tapping Stone at King's Chapel in Boston. Also note the fleur-de-lis carving in the center, which was a classic decorative element used on gravestones back then. So thanks for watching. We got lots of movies coming up this month, so be sure to like and subscribe and support my Patreon page if you like my content. Happy Halloween.